Welcome back, everyone. I have a very special guest today because I want to introduce you to something that I'm extremely interested in right now. And this is a new topic. I've never talked about it, I've never done a video on it. And so I want to slowly introduce you to this because this is going to be the wave of the future for medicine. And this is called metabolomics. Okay, metabolomics. It's not a made up word, it's an actual thing. It's fairly new. And I'm going to be interviewing my doctor who actually evaluated me and who in my family. He's very credible. He's not just an MD, but he has his PhD in metabolomics. This is Dr. Tsoukalas. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you very much for the introduction and the good words.
You're from Greece, and we're doing this remotely, and so there's not a lot of doctors in America that are doing this right now. But you don't personally do the evaluations anymore, but you have a team of doctors that do this, and so you actually train doctors on this. But let's first start out kind of telling people what is metabolomics.
Okay, metabolomics is the suffix omics means the study of molecules with similar properties. So when we apply that to genes, we study it's genomics. When we study proteins, it's proteomics, and when we study the small molecules that participate in the chemical reactions that keep us alive, it's called metabolomics. So metabolomics, the discipline, the part, the science that is part of medicine, actually is the combination of biology and medicine that studies the small molecules that make all the human reactions like energy, structures, the cells, the hormones, the metabolism of proteins, of glucose, of amino acids, and so on.
So if someone were to go to the doctor and get a regular blood test, I guess CBC or some test, and they would get certain information, and then we'd compare that to a metabolomic test. Tell me some of the differences that between these two different tests.
Actually, the usual tests that are done by doctors, the idea is to make a diagnosis of a disease, of a malfunctioning of the body, a pathology, not something that goes away from normal function as a disease. So whenever a value is out of range, we say that we have a condition that it's a disease. Metabolomics studies various metabolic pathways, and we see dysfunctions even years before they become a disease. So the basic difference is that not everything that is out of order in metabolomics is a disease, but could in the future could become a disease. Actually, metabolomics give us the needs, the malfunction at a molecular level, and even before they become a disease, they manifest as a disease.
So when I took biochemistry in college, um, of course, no one understood it. It was just like very complex. But we have all these biochemical reactions involved with every single reaction. You have various enzymes, and it's all this stuff deep inside your cells. You're able to visualize, and maybe you can throw a picture up, and you can kind of see what's happening within the mitochondria, the Krebs cycle, and all these other pathways, the biochemistry. You're actually seeing that real time, and in the different stages. It's like this biochemical machinery. We're able to finally now see each step and which area has a blockage. Correct?
Yes, it's completely correct.
Huh.
I don't know if you can see the human
Yes.
metabolome, the complete metabolic pathways in the human body. So actually, up until now, there have been identified more than 80,000 small molecules that are produced within the human body. And these molecules are called metabolites, and they provide us information about how the body is functioning. Actually, what is very interesting here is that the body needs more than 160 elements, like vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, uh, even probiotics and enzymes and so on, which are necessary for the body to function normally in a healthy state. So
Mm.
what actually we need, what is needed, is to find out what is the correct amount and proportion of these elements, nutritional elements that are necessary for life. The difficulty is that if we are going to measure those elements, vitamins and so on, in the blood, which is the more accessible, more easier way to do that, is that the body is trying to maintain the levels of these nutrients stable. So we cannot measure calcium in order to see if the person is deficient in calcium, because as long as the body has calcium in the bones, it's going to take calcium from the bones and throw it in the blood. And the same is for the other nutrients in the body. So we cannot evaluate the lack of nutrients until it's too late, because there are conditions that we see that vitamins are low or that calcium is low or high and so on, but all these are very late. Is when the body has reached a really at the end of the road. So it's very difficult then to improve health and make a difference.
So let
But
me just pause. I want to pause right there. I want to let
please,
that
yes,
sink in because that just blew me away. I mean, let that sink in for a second. By the time you have a deficiency showing up in the blood many times, like you have a severe deficiency, not all the subclinical deficiencies. And so people are walking around with, oh yeah, everything's normal in your blood, but the blood really is not the best place to evaluate the body because it's constantly trying to keep things stable. And so the metabolomics kind of now we're able to, because even like for example, let's just take zinc is needed in hundreds of different or a few thousand different pathways, right? So if you're going to do a metabolomic testing and you're looking at several, maybe not all of the pathways, but maybe several of the pathways, and they all show consistent low zinc because all these nutrients are cofactors to allow these steps to go from one to another. And so you can quickly see what's really going on. Am I correct on that?
yes, this is correct. Zinc
Okay.
participates in about 2,000 chemical reactions within the body, and magnesium in about 300 reactions within the cells, and another 315 out of the cells. But actually, if you want to see the real need or lack of magnesium or zinc in the body, we don't have to measure each of the 615 chemical reactions. We just need to measure a few of them that function as markers for the lack or sufficiency of magnesium, zinc, or other nutrients. So we measure exact those markers that give us the picture of the lack or of the sufficiency of nutrients. Actually, what we want, what we need, is to find out what's the ideal proportion and amount of these 160 plus nutritional elements that we have to provide to this person through diet and through supplementation in order to get as close as possible to optimal function.
This is just mind blowing because I mean, here you have a medical doctor, that's using this incredible test to look at the big picture of what's really going on and then to correlate the diet. You put a lot of attention to the diet, and you, like there's several things I want to share with people of what you found on myself. Like I eat a pretty healthy diet, but apparently there's a couple of things or several things I needed to focus on. One was my B3 was very low, which is interesting because B3 niacin is needed in certain biochemical pathways. So, you know, because I do a tremendous amount of exercise and sometimes I border on overtraining, you know,
Yeah,
I
that's true.
needed B3, more B3. I needed more vitamin C, glutathione, and also several other things, but it was able to look at you're correlating my lifestyle, my stress level with my foods, and finding out what's missing. Or you can even look at toxicity levels. But I think this is like, I wish just more doctors did this, because I mean, first of all, you go to the doctor in America and they do a test. And do they look at your foods? No. Do they look at your nutrition? No. They assume that they just look at symptoms, and they kind of like send you home with a medication. And you also mentioned like certain medications can not necessarily support these pathways, and I'm being very nice about it, but it just really kind of can mess up these biochemical pathways.
It's true that, and actually in your case, it's not a lack of nutrients, it's an increased demand. Because
Mm,
you probably in your body have a lot more vitamin B2 or B3 or glutamine than other persons, but what you need is more because you do some activities that increase the demand. We could take an athlete or a person that is following a very demanding lifestyle and see that some pathways are blocked because of the increased demand, not of the lack. Because
mm,
if you are going to measure in other fluids or blood or urine or saliva or whatever, the amount could be even more in relation to another person. But the need, the demand of this nutrient for that specific person is different.
wow.
And about the the usual analysis, the common analysis used, of course, they are needed, and we need to make a diagnosis and to find out what's not functioning well in a person. But this, at the end, is going to handle only the symptoms, and this is not. It's not that this, in my opinion, is something bad. It's bad if you are only going to do that. Because if I need, for example, I have a person with rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis or Hashimoto thyroiditis, and I need about 2 years and a half to bring a person in a perfect metabolic condition, I cannot say to the person to wait 2 years and a half in inflammation and pain until I handle and I optimize the metabolic pathway. So both the diagnosis, the most medication, the anti-inflammatory, they are needed in order to maintain the quality of life, to control inflammation and pain and symptoms. But it's not enough if you only do that. And this is, I believe it's the things evolved this way also because in the last century, the main problem was acute diseases, was infections, was and these problems were bringing most of the diseases and the most of the mortality in the past. 100 or 150 years ago, the average lifespan was 35 years. And this was due principally to infections, to trauma, and that we could not handle. Now we live more than double. We have more than double our longevity, and this actually is a feat of engineering more than medicine, because the ability to handle our environment, to handle temperature, to have clean water, to have systems that handle our residues, to being able to control the temperature in the environment, to be able to have our food kept safely during until we consume it, and all these things. These permitted us to bring down to zero, not to zero, actually, while it was 60%, the death rate more than 100 years ago due to infectious and acute diseases, now it's less than 8%. So 92% of mortality is due to chronic diseases. And while with acute diseases, what we had to do is to stop the disease. Now with chronic disease, this is not enough. We cannot stop disease. We have to actively do something to improve health. So we need both these things to occur at the same time. We have to handle the symptoms, we have to make a diagnosis, we have to stop disease progression, but we have to give back the ability to provide the elements of the body to function optimally. And these are things that have to happen and to occur at the same time.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the nail because the what's lacking this omission of not creating health. Like there's
Yes.
nothing in medicine that's creating health. Oh, we're just going to cut your symptoms. But what about how do you create health? But I think this new method of evaluation solves the complexities because you have it's really hard. At least when I was in practice, I didn't have this tool. In fact, I want to learn it um, to be able to find out. It's kind of like a going into a car and having plugging in this machine into the database and looking at all the circuits and going, oh yeah, your problem is this that. Now we can finally do that and find out where in the biochemistry is the problem, which is so valuable, especially for complexity, type problems. I mean, most people have a lot of issues going on. So, and then is the problem the diet? Is it toxicity? Is it heavy metals? Is it pollution? Is it stress? Is it this? You know, and then the danger of getting the wrong diagnosis and then treating the wrong thing. So I really, and can you mention one of the things is, okay, so you're looking at a certain pathway, you're looking at a certain nutrient, you're looking at an enzyme, those normals that we're now comparing, let's say what they find on your test versus everyone else, how do they come up with the normals, and are these normals based on just a bunch of sick people?
Um, the the in order to make the normal values, it was probably one of the most difficult things because metabolomics was mainly used to diagnose congenital dysfunctions. This means that a person had the lack of an enzyme, and this enzyme couldn't permit the body to use a specific nutrient or metabolite. This was accumulated, and we could find that in the urine or in the blood of the person. So when you have a congenital disease, congenital metabolic disease, you find a metabolite in huge amounts in the blood. So this was not very, it was not needed to have very narrow range in this disease because, for example, you have one metabolite which is citric, is the first metabolite in the Krebs cycle where energy is produced in the mitochondria in our cells. And this citric, the margin, the normal would be above 2000, but 2000 is too much. We've seen after thousands upon thousands of measurements in people, that the ideal, the best function occurs between 67 and 171. This is very, very narrow. So first of all, we needed to narrow this for the basic metabolites. We have to compare it with the general population to find person with no disease, no serious problems. But even the general population, as you know, more than 90% have some metabolic issue. They have some overweight, they could be tired, could have issues with the microbiome and a lot of things. So it was really, really difficult, very tough to find the normals. And at the end, we realized that the people we address and we help with the diet, they even go above the normal, what's normal for the average person in the side. They go versus an optimum health condition based, of course, on the genetics, the environment, the personality of the person. So finding the normal range was one of the hardest things. We have published data. We, of course, were based on prior publications. There have been a lot. Imagine, while the term metabolomics was first mentioned in 1998 in a public scientific article, Now we have more than 78,000 published articles that refer to the term metabolomics, and we have more than 12,000 new publications, scientific publications every year. It's one of the disciplines of medicine that has the fastest growing. And in the next years, we are going to hear a lot about this. So the difficult thing is that it's not enough to find one element and provide or correct one element. We have to correct everything at the same time. Imagine this. If you have two groups of people, and this is one of the major problems, we published that in one of the major journals, British Medical Journal, this concept. People, we are used to make research about one element at a time, one molecule, one drug, one thing. But if we are going to take two groups of to make a clinical trial, and one group we give oxygen, and the other group we give water, they're going both to die because one of lack of water and the other because of lack of oxygen. They need both. You cannot say that we had a clinical trial and one team had vitamin D and the other had magnesium and they had no significant clinical improvement, because they need both. In order vitamin D to function, you need magnesium, you need vitamin K, you need boron, you need B complex vitamins, you need calcium, and so on. So the thing is that each organism needs the whole of 166 nutritional elements that have to be present at the same time. So we provide this through diet and through supplementation. And then when the person is also taking a drug, this complicates, a medication complicates the biochemical picture, because if a person really needs to take a medication, and of course, we have medications that help, as I said before, with pain and inflammation and other things, but they are going to block a metabolic pathway. In order to have an effect, you block something. So something else accumulates, and this creates an increased need for something else. So you have to provide the elements in an increased quantity in order to have the benefits of the medication and diminishing as much as possible the side effects. And this improves a lot the outcome in many, many chronic diseases. So the thing is that you have to provide everything, and then when you provide everything, you change things in the body. So you have to measure again, because now you create new needs. It's not a stable picture, it's a dynamic picture. So after a while, after a few months, you have to measure again, and the body, because metabolism, like the fire, you put wood in a fire and the fire is small, and that as the fire burns more, you need more wood.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you increase the need in pathways, in metabolic pathways, because you supply now nutrients, and the pathways work better, faster. You increase the metabolic rate. So you create new and increased needs of new nutrients, of additional nutrients. That's why it's very, very important to measure and measure again and evaluate and readjust the diet and integration, and usually also the medications.
That's what I like. Like you have your system. You have figured out your unique normals based on your experience from, and that's probably why you're focusing now on training other doctors, getting your team of doctors to be able to really understand this information, because there's a little bit of a training curve. I mean, it's going back and learning about chemistry, but now you're applying it to the actual body, which makes it much more real. So just to let everyone know, the way that you have this laid out is you get initial tests, and then I think there's 4 tests through the year, right? Every quarter you get another test, and then until you get things stabilized over a course of year. It's not just a one-time thing. It's like you assess it every several months, right?
Yes, actually, for most of people, sometimes this can vary depending on the condition or how fast this progresses. But for most people, we need about 2.5 years to get the person in ideal metabolic state. And most of the changes we have seen that occur in the first 6 to 8 months. So we do the first measurement, then after 4 months, we do a second one and we adjust. And after another 4 months, we adjust again. And then usually after the third measurement and adjustment, we give more time to the body and we go after 8 months. And then once a year or every 2 years to sustain good health.
And what I like about it is you have you don't have to even you send us a kit, you measure, you can do a dry blood spot and urine, and you freeze it, and then you send it through the mail, and it takes a couple weeks to evaluate everything, and then you have the consultation. But anyway, I wanted just to introduce my followers to this metabolomic, which I think is going to be the wave of the future in medicine, and this is really correcting the real cause of problems. And I wish I would have had this tool when I was in practice, because you're just flying blindly, and you're just going off of, okay, do you feel better? Okay, good. We do a blood test. Okay, yeah, I think he's better. But this really just takes it to the next level. So I just wanted to, I know you have a lot to do today, so I just wanted to take a little bit of your time and just extract that data and share that with my followers. So thank you so much for spending the time to do this. And I think if anyone's interested in getting this test done, I'll put the link down below in the description, and you can check it out and go from there. So
thank you, Eric, for having me.
absolutely, thank you.
It
And
was
this
a
is
pleasure to
awesome.
speak with you.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.